esta vaina. Uf. La decadencia de One Piece en el
When I was younger,
time skip. Uy, marico, a ver qué va a decir. Esto puede ser. ¿Tirará triples? Como en el video de Dragon Ball o estará basado. ¿Se basará con One Piece?
my favorite parts of the stories would always be the parts that were the newest and biggest. Like, for example, the Boo arc was always my favorite in Dragon Ball because everyone had Super Saiyan 2 and there was Super Saiyan 3 and Fusion and Super Saiyan
El aura.
3 Fusion. Oh my god! The War arc was my favorite part in Naruto because all the characters were there. Naruto
Sí, a ver, los gringos tienen esa opinión.
had the Nine Tails powers, they had nukes, everything was just next level. And the post-time skip was my favorite part of One Piece. Everyone came back stronger with new cooler outfits and character designs, and the stakes got upped as we finally got to the new world. Now, obviously I'm not 12 years old anymore, so my tastes in stories have changed quite drastically, and so have they with One Piece. In my last video I mentioned that I find it weird when people say that One Piece doesn't get good before episode 10,000 or whatever, because in my opinion, One Piece starts incredibly good, and once
Sí. Y también el inicio de One Piece es mejor que el de Naruto, le faltó decir también, weón.
we reach the halfway point in the story, it
Oílo, ahí viene a insultarme el pendejo.
No vales la pena, eres muy becerra y aburrida. Y me vas a insultar tú, pinche meco boy. Se dice tu chingada madre y eres marica, se deletrea.
Y por último,
Siempre con tus groserías, a mí no me estés insultando.
never really reaches those heights that it did in the first half, at least not as
marico, en serio, sigo diciendo que panel tan sobrevalorado.
consistently. Now, I still really like the second half of One Piece, don't get me wrong, it's still incredibly good, but a lot of times I'll find myself reading and thinking, man, this used to be, like, better. And for a while, I couldn't quite tell why that was. I mean, the easy answer is that I simply liked the arcs and the pre-time skip better, and yeah, that's true. But I think I've finally been able to narrow down exactly what the
La pelea de Usopp contra Mr. 4 y el otro puto es una pelea increíble. Es una pelea espectacular, Increíble pelea, súper memorable.
better, and yeah, that's true. But I think I've finally been able to narrow down exactly what the first half did better, with the first thing being the Straw Hats themselves. The Straw Hats get nothing to do after the time skip. I feel like in every arc in the pre-time skip, every Straw Hat had some sort of character moment, oftentimes several. But
Marico, y todavía es que de verdad hay gente que justifica esto, weón. Y hay gente que justifica esto. Ay, weón. Hay gente que justifica esta vaina y me encanta. Hay gente que dice, pero los personajes tuvieron su evolución antes del time skip. Y por eso no pueden evolucionar. Chúpela, puto, chúpela. No existe, mano, no existen, weón. Dios mío, weón. De pana, marico, tiran cualquier vaina, weón. En serio, o sea, tiran cualquier cosa. O sea, qué ridículo es, marico, qué ridículo es, weón. Como tiran, ay, no, es que, es que después del time skip no necesitan evolución. Sí, marico, ajá, evolución. ¿Y por qué no habla? No dice nada. Usó tanto que quería ir en Elbaf y no ha hecho un coño, mano. Quería ir a Elbaf y no hizo un carrizo el tipo, dale, mano.
after the time skip, even in some of its longest arcs, some of them just don't do anything or get any character development. Like, I love Nami, I think she's a great character, but what does she do post time skip? Like, legit, I can't think of a single moment she had that I was like, damn, that was...
Nami ha hecho, bueno, a ver, Nami ha hecho más vainas, aunque sea que Usopp, bueno, de Frankie tuvo la pelea con Mr. Pink, pero eso es más logro de Mr. Pink que de Frankie. Ahí el que tiene el mérito es Mr. Pink. Chopper XD. Brook, a ver, quitando el momento con Big Mom XD. Bueno, y ahorita en Elbaf que le quieren dar algo más. Creo que en el último capítulo Brook tuvo protagonismo. Contaron algo de su pasado, una vaina así creo que. Pero no sé, o sea, tampoco es que hayan tenido mucho en general. Ninguno de los muy iguales.
really good. I
Y Zoro XD.
can't think of anything from any
Basura. Y ya, man, sí.
of these arcs.
Y este arco en el anime es basura también.
A lot of people bring up the moment she has in Wano when she never stops believing in Luffy, but that moment basically already happened in Skypiea, except it was way better there. And
¿Eh?
moment basically already happened in Skypiea, except
En Skype, ¿en serio?
It was way better there. Instead of being faced with one of the lamest characters ever, she stands
Ulti, ¿no se llamaba la trola esta?
up to the main antagonist of the arc, Enel, and declares that she would never want to fulfill her dreams without Luffy, even though he was just presumed to be gravely injured or dead, with no one to save her from Enel. It's also
Ah, sí, ¿verdad?
a way more rewarding moment because it happens way earlier in the story and isn't as expected as it is in chapter 1000 and something. Not that I'm against moments that are there to reaffirm something we already know about a character and remind us what type of person they are. After all, Luffy has like a million of those moments and they're all really good. But the Straw
Bueno, a ver, todos son buenos.
Hat's faith in Luffy has been reinforced again and again and again, so there's nothing unique about this moment. Then you think about all her moments in the
No es inglés, ¿qué dice ahí? God, ¿no?
time skip, and it's night and day. I think one of the characters that fall victim to this the hardest though is Frankie. Now to be fair, Frankie did join the story pretty late.
Frankie, más que Chopper. Más que Chopper. ¿Qué? Frankie. Hermano, pero que eso Chopper después del time skip, weón. Hermano, si el Mugiwara que menos ha hecho es Chopper. O sea, no le recuerdo ni un momento memorable después del time skip. Ni uno.
But even then, I can think of so
Marico, aunque sea Frankie tuvo la pelea con Mr. Pink, aunque sea.
many moments he had that were awesome. The moments he had in Water 7 alone is so many. And when he builds the stairway to heaven,
A ver, en ese arco se presentó. Obviamente tuvo burda de momentos ahí.
even in Thriller Bark, he's always really reliable in every situation and acts like the crew's big brother. And the post-time skip, he basically
Marico, en serio, el diseño de Frankie después del time skip me parece horrible.
has no character moments and also just isn't very involved in what's happening in the story or has a very minor role. It's like he only shows up in the story because it's obligatory for him to do so. It's weird that a story as long as One Piece has me wanting more screen time for one of its main characters.
Eso es una barbaridad. Es que yo sigo diciendo, mano, Oda no sabía gestionar los Mugiwaras. En general, después del time skip, no sabe cómo darles momentos. Incluso los intentó separar a ver si sí lo conseguía y... Es que ni lo terminó de conseguir tampoco, verdaderamente. O sea, en Whole Cake diría que lo consiguió incluso más que Andrés Rosa, weón, pero tampoco terminó de hacerlo bien. Entonces, no sé. La verdad, ahorita los Mugiwaras me dan tan igual. Del primero al último me pueden chupar las bolas. Incluso si matan a Usopp, lo agradecería, marico, por estúpido. La verdad es que los Mugiwaras ahorita están en una decadencia.
But someone who has an even more minor role in the post-time skip, especially considering how big of a role they used to have, is Usopp. Usopp
Uf, Usopp también, mano, pero... Tira que el peor es Chopper, weón.
does nothing. Now, I do want to preface that basically all the criticism I bring up in this video are not present in the Dressrosa
Pero ven, yo hablé de lo malo que es Usopp y justamente mencionan Usopp, weón.
arc. It's not my favorite arc in One Piece, but that arc just happens to not have any of the issues I bring up in this video. Because obviously Usopp gets a lot to do in Dressrosa. In fact, some of his best moments are from that arc. But then you look at
Carajo, carajo, de los mejores momentos que el Goku Usopp, weón.
the other arcs and I actually cannot think of a single
Yo cada vez que veo Usopp solamente pienso en esto.
Hablando de México ya pareces una argentina. Pinche tucán argentino y todo pendejo, hijo de puta, eres un puto culero. Siguen con sus chistes pendejos, reverendo pendejo, hijo de la chingada, con tus chistes todo feo.
thing that Usopp does outside of the Dressrosa arc. Even in Wano, the longest arc in One Piece,
Usopp estuvo en Guano.
he didn't
Yo sé que estuvo, pero no hizo un coño.
do anything. Remember how much Usopp, Robin, and Frankie had going on back in Water 7? And not just them, every Straw Hat had a
Es que si te pones, es que ves, ahí está qué buen ejemplo el de Water 7. Marico, todos los Mugiwaras, aunque sea aunque sea algo, tú dices, verga, tuvieron tal vaina, tal escena de este, del otro, todos los Mugiwaras en Water 7 tuvieron sumamente protagonismo, weón. Aquí no tuvieron un coño, no tuvieron nada. O sea, en Guano, ¿y qué recuerdas de Chopper, weón? ¿Qué recuerdas de Usopp? De Frankie, weón, quitando que creo que había atropellado a Big Mom, una vaina así, que da risa, pero quitando eso, ¿qué te acuerdas de ellos? Nada, de Brook, weón. ¿Qué hizo Brook en Guano?
at least one big moment in that arc that I still remember. And I also just don't like how a lot of the Straw Hats fight anymore. A lot of the characters had very specific movesets and clearly defined powers and weapons before that they would try to improve between every fight to get stronger. Usopp had very specific ammo he could shoot from a slingshot, like lead, explosives, eggs, rocks. He also carried spikes that he could throw on the ground. This makes us aware of how he can fight and what his limits are. Then we get to the time skip and he has like a million different types of ammo
¿Qué tiene, huevón? Estuvo entrenando, de bolas que se hace más fuerte. ¿Eso qué tiene malo?
that all do different and very specific things that always just conveniently come in clutch. And this makes it really boring. Like one of my
Aburrido. Marico, ¿sabes qué pasa? Es aburrido de Usopp, weón. Que tenga verdaderamente tal variedad de plantas, de semillas, de vainas que puede tirar y que ni las use. Eso es verdaderamente aburrido. O sea, no es el hecho de que tenga 20.000 cosas, weón, porque el tipo estuvo entrenando y de bolas que tiene 20.000 armas bajo la manga. El tema es que no las usa, weón. Por eso es aburrido Usopp, porque no hace un coño.
favorite
Como me encantaría ver todas las vainas que tiene.
moments from Usopp
O sea, y ahorita antes, por ejemplo, Usopp, ¿cómo se llama? Que hacía la vaina esta. Mi Bodriboshi, la estrella esta, la vaina esta, lo otro. Me acordaba de movimientos de Usopp, weón, de técnicas que hacía. Ahora no, weón, no me acuerdo de ningún ataque suyo.
is when he uses the freaking 10-ton hammer on
Ese momento es muy gracioso.
Perona. This works because we knew he had this in his arsenal. And this happens in what's considered to be one of One Piece's worst arcs. Even its worst
Yo sigo diciendo, Thriller Bark no es tan malo como lo quiere hacer ver la gente, ¿eh? Yo siempre lo voy a decir.
arc has so many character moments that I can think of off the top of my head. In Usopp's fight against Luffy, we get to see all of his equipment that he has shown up to this point. He even uses the dial from Skypia that we knew he took with him.
Oh, me encantan los dials.
I'm being serious when I say I don't remember any memorable attack that Usopp does
Lo que mencionó ahorita.
post time skip. Actually, I don't remember any fights he has at all. The only one
Tal cual, o sea, yo lo que recuerdo de Usopp es cuando le disparó a ¿cómo se llama? La trola esta de Dressrosa, weón, a la coña de la madre, la enana de mierda, marico, la de los caramelos, weón. ¿Cómo se llama la mongo? Ya ni me acuerdo el nombre, weón. A la enana de Dressrosa, es lo único que me acuerdo cuando le dispara, weón.
I kind of remember is when he fights Ulti, but that's way more
Ni me acordaba.
Nami's fight than
Eso te decía de Nami, me acuerdo, pero
Usopp. And speaking of Nami, this exact same issue applies to her. It's not as bad as with
Nami ha hecho mucho más que Usopp después del time skip.
Usopp, but still a big downgrade. Pre-time skip, her pole is split up into 3 sections. One can produce heat, the second one can produce cold air, and the third one can electrify the area around it. By using these 3 sections of the pole, she can do so many different attacks that all make sense when you think about how the pole works. It's actually a surprisingly intricate system, but after the time skip, she just shoots lightning like in a really straightforward way. She just summons some clouds and shoots away. Like the intricate climate baton is now just completely automatic and no thought is required. I will at least say that her controlling Zeus was cool, seeing as
Sí.
that is something that makes
Y se lo roba Big Mom.
total sense for her to be able to do, but it's a bit too little too late. And this issue is very prevalent with other characters too, like Frankie, who, just like Usopp, gets a million new powers and gadgets and robots. Remember when he would just like do a strong right or his weapons left? Yeah, that was nice. You know what else you
Bueno, a ver, pero tienen que evolucionar, weón. Marico, ¿por qué la gente se queja de que la gente evolucione con los poderes, weón? O sea, ahora que esté mal, que no sé, que Frankie tenga más poderes, weón. Está mal ahora de que yo no sé, que Usopp tenga más plantas. Está mal que Nami tenga más vainas. ¿Por qué está mal, weón? Ahora la gente no puede evolucionar con sus poderes en el anime.
used to be nice?
Si fuese una vaina sin sentido, digo, verga, está bien, pero mamá, weón, tiene sentido.
Chopper. I miss the old Chopper, straight from the gold Chopper, top of the soul Chopper. Just like
¿Eh?
the others, Chopper gets absolutely
Para mí, Chopper es el peor Mugiwara después del time skip, junto con Frankie, probablemente.
nothing to do, and whenever he fights, it's just less entertaining. Like, remember when the Monster Point had serious
Chopper actualmente es un meme, weón, en One Piece. O sea, el tipo está ahí, ay, miren, la mascota de la tripulación, no le dan mucha recompensa porque es la mascota. Ah, miren, no hace nada, cura gente. De verdad es muy aburrido Chopper, weón.
consequences and would go completely out of control, meaning he could only use it as a last resort. It was something that had a serious risk, but that also offered a lot of reward as well. But after the time skip, all that risk is effectively removed, and now he can use it without any worries.
Y sí se la doy. Mira, este poder, a ver, tiene sentido que Chopper haya descubierto una forma de solucionar el tema de que no tuviera peligro al consumir a la Monster Point y toda esa vaina. Tiene sentido. Ahora, el tema es que sí le hubiese sido mucho más interesante que tuviera consecuencias, weón. O sea, como que tuviera menos consecuencias que antes, pero aún tuviera problemas y eso le costara. O sea, eso, como. Marico, que él tuviera peos a la hora de pelear con eso. Se ha sido mucho más interesante, la verdad.
He gets a bit tired, I guess. Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have made the characters stronger after the time skip, but when you don't give them any ways to improve or get better, they just kind of remain stagnant, just like their character development.
Carajo, pero si le han dado formas de ser más fuerte, no entiendo qué dices.
A lot of people don't like how formulaic the fights were pre-time skip and the way everyone got their own person to fight. Like Sora would fight the second strongest and Sanji would fight the third strongest.
Sí, a día de hoy siguen haciendo lo mismo. A día de hoy siguen haciendo la misma vaina, ¿no? O sea, el segundo más poderoso de cada tripulación se enfrenta a Zoro, weón. O sea, Zoro se enfrenta. Luffy se enfrentó a Lucci. Este se enfrenta a Kaku. Luffy se enfrentó a este huevón de Kaido. El otro se enfrentó a King. Sanji a Queen. Así. Y lo vienen haciendo lo mismo. ¿Qué pasó, André? ¿Cómo estás, mano? O sea, marico, vienen haciendo la misma vaina. O sea, no entiendo cuál es la queja.
And so on. But at least those fights always managed to develop the characters involved. I would much rather take that than nothing. You know, I think one of the issues
A ver, ahí sí se basó.
is that there are just too many characters in the Straw Hats. Like, there is just too many to
Marico, y todavía hay gente que sigue queriendo meter a más personas en los Mugiwaras. Todavía dicen, ay no, Yamato tiene que ser Mugiwara. Carrock tiene que ser Mugiwara. Este tiene que ser Mugiwara. Mi vecino tiene que ser Mugiwara. Ya está, marico, dejen de querer meter a medio mundo en los Mugiwara. Me tienen cansado, hermano. Dios santo, no pueden ni manejar Oda, weón. A los pendejos que tiene ya de por sí, que son 10, y quieren meter a más. Dale, está bien, weón, está bien.
focus on. Either some characters are gonna get all the spotlight and the rest get nothing, or it'll have to be evenly distributed so that no one
Esto no tiene absolutamente nada que ver con el video, solamente quería decirlo. Puta, puta.
Pinche tucán argentino y todo pendejo, hijo de puta, eres un puto culero. Siguen con sus chistes pendejos, reverendo pendejo, hijo de la chingada, con tus chistes todo feo.
Tu mamá fue un error de la vida.
Chupa la Shirahoshi.
gets enough. And this issue was sort of attempted to be fixed, it seemed, at one point in the story, where the crew splits up. One half goes to Dressrosa and the other one goes to Whole Cake. But even when split into two, the lack of focus on them is still felt. I mean, considering these are two of the longest arcs in the series and only half the crew are present for
78 capítulos dura, weón. ¿En serio dura 78 capítulos Whole Cake? Yo me tengo que meter un tiro, weón.
each arc, meaning both sides will have a large part of the story where they're just not in it at all. You'd think that every one of them would get a decent amount of development or some sort of unique moment, but like a lot of them don't. Zoro is of course
Lo dije antes de que lo mencionara.
not in Whole Cake at all, so Dressrosa would be his arc. But the only thing he does is cut a rock for like a ridiculously long amount of time.
Marico, lo único que hizo Sora el Dressrosa fue decirle soprano a Pica. Ahí tienes el desarrollo y la importancia de Sora en Dressrosa. Pica, soprano.
That's it. Again, Thriller Bark is supposed to be the worst One Piece arc, but it has a Zoro moment.
Pero ¿cómo va a ser el peor arco de One Piece, huevón? Pero ¿cómo lo va a hacer? Bueno, dice que supuestamente, a ver, marico, Punhazard y la isla de Gyojin son 20 veces peores que Punhazard. Digo que esta verga, que Thriller Bark.
That is better than anything he gets post
Bueno, a ver, me basé. Lo único peor que Punhazard es Punhazard.
time
No sé,
skip.
güey.
Robin also gets absolutely nothing in that arc.
Lo único que tiene Robin. O sea, imagínate lo que tiene Robin en Dressrosa. O sea, es que esto es una barbaridad. Esto es lo que tiene Robin en Dressrosa. Ah, no se ve. Ah, pues no, no aparece. A la busca en YouTube, pues. Una escena que creo que el personaje la mandó en... Incluso cuando le estaba viendo, weón. Me gustaría saber qué dijo. Esto es lo que tuvo... Esto es lo que tuvo Robin en Dressrosa, fue esto. Grande Oda. El mejor mangaka de la historia.
She was one of the more complex characters in the pre-time skip, even after Water 7, but she just kind of gets pushed into the
Otra trola, marico Rebeca. Otra trola más, weón.
background. She had like a decent fight in Wano, but that's it. It's like
Bueno, y su pelea en Guano tampoco fue, como dice, fue normalita. Tampoco fue la gran vaina.
she's there only to read the poneglyphs and nothing else. In Dressrosa, she is only there for fan service. But again,
Factos.
Dressrosa isn't terrible in that regard, and some of the Straw Hats do get a decent amount of shine, but the whole Cake arc is way worse. Obviously, this is
Qué malo que Whole Cake, yo lo sigo diciendo. Hay gente que dice que Whole Cake es bueno, mano. Caen con esa mentira.
Sanji's arc, and he gets enough to do for sure.
Mhm.
But the rest of them, once again, Chopper is out here
XD.
starving, man. My man is just here to be a cute pet. Nami slaps Sanji, and that's it. Brook does absolutely nothing. Not that he ever did anything in the series to start with, but you know, I feel like the post time skip would be his time to shine because he joined the crew just before the time skip. You'd think that this would be when he finally gets focused on,
Es verdad.
but no. I mean, I like that he stands up to Big Mom and breaks the
A ver, fue un momento épico y ese fue un momento bastante útil, pero quitando eso.
picture. Those are pretty nice moments for him, but that's purely just action moments that are completely expected from him. He never gets any sort of character development.
Sí, también te digo, es que creo que solamente lo que hicieron con Sanji ahí ya fue mejor que lo que hicieron con el resto de Mugiwaras en Guano. En verdad.
I actually really liked Brook when he first joined the crew. He had like one of the most sad
Este momento fue peak, marico. Este es de mis pasados favoritos de One Piece.
and depressing backstories of all time, and the connection he shared with Luffy felt really genuine. Now he's just an
Qué buen momento este.
all time, and the connection
Este momento es cine.
he shared with Luffy felt really genuine. Now he's just an unfunny, perverted skeleton. I have
Sí.
no idea why the crew was even split up in this way in the first place. Like, you'd think that if you were gonna split up the main crew, you'd have a really good reason for which character is in which place. But if you were to like change places with Robin and Brook, would anything really change? There are
En el caso de Brook, sí. Porque lo que hizo con Big Mom y tal no lo hubiese hecho Robin. Ahí sí.
many moments in the pre-time skip where the crew is separated for a short period of time, and there is always a really good reason for it. To bring up Thriller Bark for the third time this video, the crew gets separated
Cásate con Thriller Bark. Marico, mencionó Thriller Bark como 20 veces en el video.
at the very beginning of that arc. There you have Usopp, Nami, and Chopper all walking into Thriller Bark ahead of the rest of the crew. The reason for this is because these are the three weakest and most scared members of the crew, so they're gonna be scared of everything they see. Whereas afterwards, the rest of the crew are gonna come in and they're not gonna be scared of anything. That's one of the things that makes Luffy pushing the zombie down so funny. In Water 7, Robin
Ah, no, esa escena de Luffy es buenísima. La escena de Luffy metiendo el zombie es cine. Y hay otra escena que me mama de la risa en One Piece es cuando cuando Luffy está cantando en Skypiea. Este momento es peak. Este momento es muy bueno. Esta es la mejor canción de la historia del anime, bro. Fíjate cómo la conclusión de... ¿Cómo termina cada frase con todos son idiotas? Me parece cine, bro. Me parece muy peak. Que digan todos son idiotas me parece clave.
and Frankie are aboard the train because they get captured. Usopp boards the train to redeem himself. Sanji also boards the train to show how willing he is to put his
Aura.
life on the line for his crew. And of course, the rest of the crew aren't there because they couldn't make it in time. I have no idea what purpose it is to have Chopper and Whole Cake when he doesn't do anything. And sure, the Straw Hats all got a lot of
Porque sí.
character development in the pre-time skip material, and you might say that
Bueno, mucho, mucho, vamos a...
they finished developing back then, but if a character is done
Nada, la gente que dice los Wii ahora se dejaron de desarrollar y por eso ahora están así. Qué pésima excusa, marico, qué pésima excusa, hermano. Excusa terrible.
developing and doesn't actually have anything to do in the story anymore, that character should not be in the story.
Factos. Pasadísimo.
You know, I don't even think this would be like a huge issue if the characters that take up the spotlight instead were actually good. Which takes me to my second problem. The new characters. Every
¿Qué pasó, mano? No, el video hasta ahora, pasado, ¿eh? Ha dicho como una o dos vainas con las que no estoy de acuerdo, pero en general se basó, ¿eh? Se basó, huevón. No ha dicho ninguna mentira hasta ahora, ¿eh? Aquí no se tiró triple.
arc in One Piece, we always get introduced to characters that typically only appear in the arc they get introduced.
Marico, cómo me encanta la... Cuando tiran, no, One Piece tiene muchos personajes y te meten en cada arco 20.000 personajes y son buenísimos. Marico, te meten 900 personajes, huevón. Y solo son interesantes 5. Y si es que son 5.
And are a crucial part of that story. In the pre-time skip, we had characters like Vivi, Seth, Nojiko, Viper, and Kokoro, just to name a few. And in the post-time skip, we have Duke, Dogstorm, Pudding,
Pudding, ¿cómo es acá Pudding? Nada, no seamos serios.
Carrot, and Raizo.
Nada, marico, pero también te digo, estás escogiendo cada personaje, weón. A ver, en la isla Gyojin tienes a Jodillón, iba a decir el otro mongólico, Fisher Tiger, a la mamá de Orihime, también, que viste, lo único bueno de Orihime es la madre, la mamá caía bien. ¿Qué más? Bueno, a Jinbe ya lo conocíamos. En Punhazard, bueno, Vergo, Monek, todos esos tipos dan igual, eso es verdad. Pero en Punhazard no hay nadie, ¿eh? En verdad en Punhazard sí no hay un coño. Luego, en Dressrosa, Cavendish, Bartolomeo, tienes a Kiros. Verga, alguno me falta, weón. Escogí a Bartolomeo, sí, por eso te digo, o sea, escogí a Raizo, weón. A Raizo te mete tipo. Barbaridad. Luego, van a ver, Kinemon también. Está Kinemon. Está Momonosuke. Luego, ¿qué más, weón? Whole Cake. La familia de Sanji me chupa las bolas, solamente la hermana es interesante. Katakuri. A ver, Pudding es importante, marico, pero es tremenda puta, weón. Podría contar Pudding, pero me da igual. Bueno, Pedro también. Sí, Pedro podría decir también. Bueno, Mr. Pink también, Mr. Pink. Sí. Bueno, pero este tipo creo que está metiendo más que todos los personajes de... Como los buenos, puede ser, weón, porque no mencionó a nadie, tipo, que tire al otro lado, tipo un villano ni nada de eso. Creo que está contando más que todos los buenos, weón. Por ahí, weón, creo, weón, pero... Sí, Mr. Pink también. Pero el resto es que tampoco... Oye, en Guano, es que en Guano para mí no hay nadie interesante en Guano, en verdad, weón. En Guano, ¿quién está, marico? Te meten tantos personajes y todos me chupan las bolas. Queen, King, Ulti, todos esos putos me dan igual. ¿Quién metieron en Guano, weón? En verdad, es que me dan tan igual todos esos bichos.
Like, they're not
Bueno, el viejito que entrenó a Luffy con lo del haki me cayó bien, por ejemplo, ese bichín.
bad,
Que luego lo sacrificaron ahí.
but they're all just so
El papá de Frankie God, ¿no?
far from the quality of the characters from the pre-time skip. I think it starts off fine with Shirahoshi. She's pretty solid, but then we
¿Qué? Marico, mira lo que dice, qué barbaridad.
characters from the pre-time skip. I think it starts off fine with Shirahoshi. She's pretty solid, but then we get
Sólida, dice, sólida. Carajo, es horrible, marico, si es de las peores vainas del arco. Marico, si las peores cosas del arco son esa mierda, las peleas, Jody Jones, Van der Decken. Marico, Shirahoshi, Jody Jones y Van der Decken son de las peores cosas de todo el arco de la isla Gyojin. Y este tipo y que bastante sólida. ¿Sólida de qué? Una patada en las bolas.
the Punk Hazard
El rey Neptuno y los dos hermanos mongólicos que tienen son mejores que esta tipa.
and there's these oversized
Estos bichines dan igual, bro.
children. I bet you can't name a single one of them or even remember how one of them looked like. We get introduced to Kinemon in this arc, but he ends up being so disappointing. Like, he is
Bueno, sí, es verdad, Sanji. Sanji también. Ese es otro que XD.
a part of the Straw Hats crew from that point all the way to the end of Wano. Think about that. That is like half of the series, half of One Piece.
Trola. Ah, no, y pensé que iba a aparecer más personajes secundarios, pero no. Trola, ya está, Trola.
So one of the longest stories of all time, and he and Momonosuke have less memorable moments and development in 400 chapters than Vivi does in 115. When we
Ahí se basó, ahí se basó.
finally get to Wano, which is supposed
También te digo, es que para llegar a Guano tardaron mucho más tiempo. Es que también fue el tema.
to be their arc, I was just so underwhelmed. I do
Lo mismo con Zoro.
like everything that happens with Momonosuke, but even that is kind of underwhelming considering how long that arc is and how long it was built up to. And once
Es que, marico, yo lo sigo diciendo. En Guano metieron a tantos personajes randoms que dan igual en lugar de desarrollarte a Kinemon, a Momonosuke bien. A mí me cagó de risa cuando Kinemon supuestamente muere del gas y Brook cagándose llorando. God, ¿no? God. Esencia. Cine, mano, cine. Ah, marico, pero en serio, como dice este pana, bueno, es que en Guano metieron a tanto random, no te desarrollaron a ninguno en lugar de desarrollarte a Kinemon bien, a Momonosuke, a toda esa gente, mano, le dieron uno que otro momentito ahí y ya está, weón. Pero dale, marico, te meten a puros huevones para nada, marico.
again, Dressrosa is an exception because the new characters
Sí.
introduced in that arc kind of rock. Like Rebecca and the Soldier.
Bueno, no. Te corrijo. Rebeca a un lado. El crack aquí es Kiros. Kiros es tu padre. Kiros es tu papá, weón. Kiros es la cabra, weón. Esta tipa es una estúpida de mierda y merecía morir, weón. Bueno, merecía morir no, pero que la chupe Rebeca, weón.
That shit hit. But the rest of the arcs just kind of stink in this department. I don't want to see any of the Whole Cake characters.
Banco muchísimo, marico. A ver. Estaba el trolo este, ¿cómo se llamaba el puto este de mierda, marico, weón? Coño, que se casó con la otra mongólica, weón. Se me olvidó el nombre del sicario este de mierda. ¿Cómo se llamaba? Capone, weón. Capone Vega. El weón de Capone Vega, ese weón. A ver, estaba ahí con la loca esta, que tenía un hijo, una hija. Ya ni me acuerdo qué tenía. Tampoco hizo mucho. Sirvió de ayuda y está. La hermana de Sanji es interesante. Esta tipa es puta. Todos me dan igual. Y todos es que me la pelan todos estos, weón. Quitando a Katakuri.
Ever again. Not because they're terrible, but because they're just so meh. I felt absolutely nothing when Pedro died
Pedro también tuvo su momento.
because the story hadn't even tried to make me connect with him on a deeper level.
¿Cierto?
Carrot cares about him a lot, but
Carrock me da igual.
like, I don't
Carrock te cae bien, pero quitando eso, sin más.
care about Carrot either. Another character that joins the Straw Hats for a pretty long time just because. She never grows or develops. When we leave her in Wano, she's just the same person she was before. And speaking of Wano, I gotta say that this was the case here for me too. I get that this is a really long arc, but I think it introduced way too many characters.
Sí, Carrock, la nueva integrante de, de los Mugiwaras, al igual que Yamato, ¿eh? Yamato también, Yamato, Carrock. Todos tienen que ser integrantes, weón.
Even the Akasaya 9
En este, de Vegapunk tenía que ser un... Bueno, mejor dicho, Kuma y también Bonnie tenían que ser integrantes de los Mugiwara.
alone. Like, you really expect me to care about 9 new characters?
Los 9 son unos randoms.
But that's not it. There are like a billion other characters in this arc that get crammed onto the pages. And we're gonna talk about crammed pages later. But like, do you really expect me to care about Ashura Doji?
Aburridísimo.
Who the hell even is that? Luffy doesn't care. Nobody else really seems to care except for the Akasaya 9 themselves. So why should I care? And you know who I also don't care about? The villains post time skip.
Qué horrible que es Orochi, hermano. Qué horrible que es. Qué bueno que lo mataron. O sea, que lo peor es que su muerte ni tiene sentido porque contradice el mensaje que querían dar. Y es una cagada en ese aspecto. Pero qué bueno que lo mataron.
They are
Oda, te perdono porque la muerte no tenga sentido. ¿Por qué? Porque lo mataste. Por eso mismo te lo perdono.
all so goddamn lame. Except for Doflamingo. But everyone else sucks. The first
Eso que también te digo, los villanos de One Piece tampoco es que sean un espectáculo en general, ¿eh?
arc starts with one of One Piece's weakest villains ever, Hody Jones. I do
Y Bonderdicken.
really like this arc, but Hody is by
trajo mi tía al señor Pin. ¿Sabes por qué lo hizo? Porque el tipo le molesta que se vista como un bebé aunque sea un adulto, weón. Y que use un chupón, por eso mismo. Está en contra de eso, por eso no lo mencionó. Envidioso. Le envidia la valiosa fama del señor Pink, por eso no lo mencionó.
Nada más quiero mi valiosa fama.
Marico, ¿cómo vas a decir que te gusta este arco, weón? Por favor.
By far the weakest part of it. I like the way he represents extreme racism and is an example of what happens when you don't teach young people forgiveness, but he has no personal experiences
Lo que representa el weón de Jody Jones.
Un meme con racismo.
that would explain why he has this ideology. Like, he hates humans just because. And of course, this is a real thing that happens today, with kids being taught to hate people of different race since birth. But from a
Como cierta persona con los argentinos.
Hablando de México, ya pareces un argentino.
storytelling perspective, this is so boring because we have no way of relating to him. And he
Y también hay que hablar de Vanderdecken.
never develops or changes his views, like he stays hating until the very end. He doesn't even have a standout personality, he's just a big angry dude. He's so bland
Tremendo ardido.
that I often forget he even exists. Hell, Wapol is more memorable than him. I also tend to
Guapol no es el mejor ejemplo, También, Guapol también es otro que... A ver, me parece peor Jodillón, pero Guapol tampoco es que sea la gran vaina.
forget this dude from Fishman Island who
Horrible. Yo solamente lo recuerdo porque este tipo es un acosador y acosaba a la mongólica de Shirahoshi, weón.
was also like a pretty
Y le quisieron poner su pasado con Arlon y toda vaina así, que tenía un pasado con Arlon y que la huevonada, sí, sí, sí. Me chupa las bolas, una cagada, jodillón.
important villain in the arc. Then we have Caesar and Punk Hazard, and I gotta say, I actually really like Caesar when he gets used for comedic relief. He actually gives us some of the funniest moments in the show, but I really don't think he's good as a main
César me chupa las bolas también.
villain. Like, he's just evil because he's evil, and it's not really enough to carry the whole arc. I like Caesar in all the arcs after this because he's actually kind of hilarious, and it's funny how, like, comically evil he is. But, like, liking an incredibly evil villain because he's funny is probably not a great sign. There is not a single villain post-time skip that is better than Crocodile or Arlong. NL is also
¿Eh? Carajo, si Doflamingo es mejor que esos dos, weón. Doflamingo es mejor. Marico, no sé si excluye a Doflamingo. Bueno, a ver, dijo al inicio que no iba a hablar de Doflamingo. Pero no, aquí tendrá que meter a Doflamingo, ¿no? Aquí tendrá que meterlo. Doflamingo es mejor que cualquiera de los dos.
there's not a single villain post-time skip that is better than Crocodile
Y dice que no hay ninguno solo. Que no hay ninguno de... O sea, ni uno solo que sea mejor. Doflamingo es mejor que los dos.
or Arlong. NL is also better than all of them except for Doflamingo.
Es que ve, ahí lo aclaró. Ahí lo aclaró. Entonces, para el tipo, Crocodile y Arlon son mejores que Doflamingo. A mí no lo son, ¿eh?
Though I will say that even though I love Doflamingo, his henchmen are all pretty lame.
Uy.
Except for Senior Pink, of course. Everyone else are such cardboard cutouts. Even Doflamingo's top officers, the devil himself's
Se basó ahí se basó.
finest soldiers, you'd think that they'd at least be like
Ya, este trolo, ajá, el trolo de Vergo, el puto de Pica, Trébol. ¿Cómo se llamaba este maricón, weón? ¿Cómo se llamaba este? No era Diamante, o estoy drogado, weón. O Diamante no era el que era de la tripulación de Barba Blanca. ¿Cómo se llamaba este puto, weón?
a fraction as interesting as him, but no.
Este puto que peleó con Kiros, mano, pero no me acuerdo el nombre. Y bueno, estaba el otro de... Coño, el que peleó con Bartolomeo, el huevón ese, el de... El maricón que usaba las botas, weón, que era como Sharkboy. Se llamaba de Liener, de Leiner, una verga así que se llama el huevón este.
We have this snot dude,
Trébol es nefasto.
Hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
a rock, and Diamante, who
Si era Diamante, vamos, lo sabía.
I guess could have been kind of interesting, but he
Un momento.
isn't. And there are just so many of them. Like, remember how I said Wano had too many new characters to care about on the hero side?
Ah, marico, de Panic todavía más random de los que recordaba. Estaban estos putos también. Ah, el de Lenny era esto, como verga se llama este maricón. Estos bichines, la verga, que había más,
Well, this
¿cierto?
arc has the same problem, but on the villain side. And again, Zoro's fight with Pika is just so lame. Remember when
Pelea
he
aburridísima.
fought Mr. One and felt like he had to be able to cut steel to prove that he was worthy to be Luffy's
Momentazo.
companion? Well, now he's struggling to cut stone. And for the last two big villains of the
Marico, la pelea es súper aburrida, O sea, la pelea se basa en Zoro diciéndole soplar una pica para provocarlo. Y es una pelea que Zoro pudo haber terminado desde un principio. O sea, Zoro se ponía serio y le ganaba a pica.
post time skip, we have Big Mom and Kaido. And they are just so goddamn mid. The four
Sí basó, marico, sí basó. Factos.
emperors we get introduced to before them was Whitebeard, Blackbeard, and Shanks. Like the
¿Eh? ¿Cómo qué?
introduced to before them was Whitebeard, Blackbeard, and Shanks. Like the bar was set pretty damn high for them, and while I didn't expect any of them to be up to that standard,
Yo sí, Kaido. Yo sí esperaba mucho de Kaido.
I at least expected them to have something going for them. Big Mom wants to create a utopia, as she calls it, where every race can live. But this goal never gets focused on in the story. It's way more focused on showing how she loves food and destroys
Factos.
the city. And
Wedding cake. Qué meme el wedding cake, güey.
there could have been some cool ideological conflicts between her and Luffy, as there are some similarities and contrasts between their ideologies, but that never happens. And her reasons for
Que mano, Big Mom en Whole Cake no hizo un coño. O sea, quitando que nos presentaron su pasado, no hizo nada. Yo dije, verga, a ver. O sea, el enemigo final fue Katakuri. O sea, van a guardar a Big Mom para Guano. En Guano no hizo nada. Peleó con Lo y con Kick. Y los dos le ganaron en una pelea que de paso fue un robo. Porque esa pelea la tenían que ganar Big Mom. O sea, era imposible que le ganara a los dos bobinas estos. Y le ganaron a Big Mom. O sea, le robaron a Big Mom. Hizo el ridículo. O sea, lamentable el trato que le dieron a Big Mom.
wanting to accomplish this goal feels so shallow. She wants to do it because those were
Ay, qué asco, Madre Carmen. Horrible.
the
también.
values taught to her as a kid or something. And because she's kind of a crazy person, that's just what she wants to do, I guess. It feels less like she wants to do it because of some genuine, intricate, and complex reason, but more so like she has an IQ of 50 and we're just
Factos.
watching a dumb person do whatever they decide. I will say
Sí.
that there actually feels like something was attempted with Big Mom, but ultimately the execution really didn't land, which is way more than I can say about Kaido.
Se basó, ¿eh? Se basó, eso sí es cierto. Hicieron. Oda hizo. O sea, intentó hacer mucho más con Big Mom de lo que hizo con Kaido. Eso es verdad. Eso es cierto.
Kaido is the definition of mid and bland. Truly the
Facts.
most disappointing character in all of One Piece. There is just nothing to him. Even after having him as the main villain of One Piece's longest arc, I still feel like
Hermano, ¿cómo se está basando, Con Dragon Ball, la mayoría del video fue una basura, O sea, la mayoría del video no tenía sentido, pero con One Piece se está basando durísimo. Carajo. Es increíble cómo no entendí una obra y la otra sí. Locura, weón. Es como la gente que dice que Kogure es top 8 y después te dice que Vegeta obtuvo el Super Saiyan 2 en la habitación del tiempo. Ah, no, esas personas no entendieron ninguna de las dos obras.
I don't know anything about him. He wants to die in battle fighting a strong enough opponent, so why doesn't he go out and do that? Like every time we see him, he's just relaxing and drinking. If he really wanted to die in battle so badly, you'd think he'd actually battle more. Lots of shonen characters has this as their goal, and they typically get a rush in battle, even if their opponent isn't as strong as them. But Kaido seems like he doesn't even want to fight. When Sora Zoro is about to hit him with his strongest attack, Kaido looks scared and dodges it. He doesn't fight Odin one-on-one, he ambushes him and takes over the country instead. Even if he believed there was no one out there that could beat him, surely he'd enjoy fighting more than just doing nothing. His backstory is so short and limited that
Factos.
there's nothing to make me connect with him on a deeper level. And the only thing that makes him a threat is his strength. Like, the only thing that is so scary about him
Lo único interesante que también tiene Yamato, cabe destacar.
is how strong he is. He's not really scary or smart and doesn't have a unique personality at all. It's just another big angry strong dude. Doflamingo was shitting his pants over this guy. And look, pre-time skip had a decent amount of villains that weren't that good or complex. But at least those
Mira, Krieg, entre Krieg y Kaido, no hay tanta diferencia.
characters
Y Krieg apareció como no sé cuántos, 6 capítulos, una vaina así en el anime. No hay tanta diferencia con Kaido.
weren't the main antagonists for 150 chapters. If a villain was bland or uninteresting,
Lo mismo con este, weón.
at least you knew that
Lo mismo con Morgan, la misma vaina.
you wouldn't have to spend too much time with them. And you didn't have to wait like 50 years before
Incluso con Kuro también.
Luffy finally beat them. It was actually pretty satisfying when Luffy won against Kuro. He's not that great of a character, but at least the arc and Kuro's motivations were very clear and concise and didn't drag on forever. So when Luffy won, it felt like a satisfying enough moment. When he won against Kaido, I was just kind of checked out at that point. I just wanted to move on to the next arc. Like, Wano was foreshadowed since the dawn of time, and so was Kaido, to be honest. And once we finally foreshadowed since the dawn of time, and so was Kaido, to be honest. And once we finally get there, we the dawn of time, and so
Esto todavía me parece peor, ¿eh? O sea, me parece todavía peor esta vaina. Yo no me acordaba de que Moria había mencionado que había perdido con Kaido. Todavía me parece peor la mierda de que, o sea, la excusa que dicen no, porque habría que mostrar todo lo que pasó Kaido con Moria en Guano, porque habría que mostrarlo si Moria es un personaje terciario, no importa. O sea, Pico, ya va, es que lo voy a buscar, ¿eh? Yo voy a buscar esto para ver si es cierto, ¿eh? Porque yo lo voy a buscar porque ya. Voy a buscar esta vaina y me voy a asegurar de que verdad ya ha dicho esto. Yo creo que sí, pero si es cierto, deja todavía peor a Oda y a la gente que defiende el argumento de que, ay, Moria es un personaje terciario. Y bueno, nada, así, entonces quedan todavía peor los tipos estos, ¿eh?
was Kaido, to be honest. And once we finally get there, we get one of the most bland characters of all time to care about for 150 chapters. And it's not like Kaido's crew is much more interesting either. These guys just kind of suck. King is, I think, one of the more popular characters among the crew, and he has kind of a cool design, I guess. That's about it though. Kaido saved him when they were younger, so now he's forever loyal to him. Wow, that's so cool and interesting, man. And he also just doesn't do anything in the story. He stops Big Mom's crew and loses the
O sea, sí. Sí, la escena sí aparece. La escena sí aparece. Sí aparece en el manga. Acabo de buscar. Yo sé por. Lo acabo de buscar en Reddit. Un post de hace 11 años. 11 años. Marico, 11 años. O sea, en 2015 fue este post que hicieron. Échale bolas. O sea, eso pasó en el manga. O sea, Moria sí mencionó lo de Kaido. Nada, barbaridad, barbaridad. Esto hace todavía peor lo del tema de lo del pasado de Moria con Kaido. Hace todavía peor lo de que no lo hayan contado.
Zoro. That's it. Then we have Kaido's left-hand man, Queen. And he is just so
Goda lo hizo de nuevo, efectivamente. Goda lo hizo de nuevo. Es que solamente Go era capaz de hacerlo.
Goda, 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 oh Goda.
¡Goda lo hizo de nuevo!
So fucking whack, dude. And worst of all, we have the Toby Ropo. I actually could not tell you anything about any of them. They joined the story at the very end just to all lose pretty easily. Man, okay, I've been
Aburridísimo todos ellos.
really negative for a while, so time for some positives. I think the new Navy Admiral is pretty cool. He's
Green Bull. Green Bull que hizo el ridículo. Que Momonosuke se lo estaba meando. Que Momonosuke se lo meó. Green Bull. Que vio a Shanks y se cagó. Green Bull. Qué triple. Hizo el ridículo en Wano, marico, seamos serios. Es la peor presentación de la historia de un almirante, la de Green Bull. Fue nefasta la presentación. O sea, Kizaru, Aokiji, Akainu, Fujitora, cualquiera de esos cuatro tiene mejor presentación de almirante que este. Hermano, pero este almirante da vergüenza.
seems like a pretty fun villain. And now for my final criticism, the art and paneling. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I really used to like the Straw Hats' new outfits and designs, but again, as I've gotten older, I've come to realize that
Diseños,
they're kind of a downgrade. Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji look fine, I guess. I mean, they're basically the same. But most of the other ones I think look worse. Again, they don't necessarily look bad, but just worse. Chopper got rid of his dad's hat and replaced it with a freaking
Para mí se veía antes mejor Chopper, la verdad.
diaper. Like, what? I like the idea for Usopp's new design, and generally I think it's pretty solid, but it's just not as good as the original one. Like, when
Banco.
I think of Usopp,
No me disgusta el nuevo diseño de Usopp, pero me gustaba más antes.
I imagine this, not this. And Frankie got the worst downgrade of all of them. I'm sorry, but he looks fucking ridiculous. I mean, Frankie always kind of looked a bit ridiculous, but he
Basadísimo, Ya lo de Frankie da vergüenza ajena. Lo de Frankie no tiene ni sentido. O sea, la verdad, el diseño de Frankie es penoso.
definitely had a certain style to him that only he could pull off. Now he just looks dumb. And Nobby and Robin,
Hermana, la verdad, el diseño es horrible.
no, I can't even be down bad right now. They look so generic. They were so
Alzo una persona proveniente de la selva. Es que el crecimiento representa el desarrollo de los personajes y tiene sentido que haya pasado 2 años y que les crecieran por eso. Robin tiene 30 y pico de años y creo que en ese entonces tenía 40 después del time skip. Tiene sentido, ¿eh? Mágicamente se da. Mágicamente. Por la carísima. Por la cara tiene. Dale, mano, seamos serios, weón. Seamos serios.
recognizable before, especially Robin with her hair. Now they look like they could be anyone. I've seen several new One Piece fans that can't tell the difference between Nami, Robin, and Boa, and one of the most important things when it comes to character design is how easy it is to recognize them. And it's especially hard to recognize them when they've been pushed into the corner of a really small panel with 10 speech bubbles. I talked about this a little bit in my last video, but One Piece has some kind of bad paneling post-time.
Factos.
Most people are aware of this, but it took me a while before I realized because it's a pretty gradual change. I have been reading both Dragon Ball and Berserk lately, so maybe I've been kind of spoiled in terms of paneling, but the first half of One Piece also has incredibly good paneling.
Eso sí es verdad.
Just like Dragon Ball, you can kind of just blitz through it because it's so engaging to read. I open a new page and I'm glued to it and excited to read it. After the time skip,
Es que el tema de One Piece es que está demasiado sobrecargado. O sea, hay demasiado texto todo el rato. Es muy pesado y muy difícil de leer. Es que es verdad, güey.
I turn a page and sigh because there is so much damn clutter and text and drawings crammed together as much as possible. And what this does is make the pacing bad. Moments are not allowed to breathe and exist for more than 2 seconds without there being
Y de paso, o sea, primero el texto y todo, y también estéticamente no se ve bien. No se ve bien esta vaina.
10 panels next to it that are related to something completely different. It's the equivalent of having fast pacing in an anime or TV show. I mean, it doesn't destroy your experience.
Marico.
Again, I want to make it clear that I still very much enjoy the post time skip, and oftentimes the paneling is alright, but I can't remember the last time it was actually like good for more than 2 chapters.
Sí, eso que hay paneles todavía peor,
I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I struggled to find one overarching reason as to why I don't like the post time skip as much, and that I had smaller and more specific issues instead. But as I'm writing this video, I'm realizing that there is something that ties pretty much all of these things together. My one main reason for not liking the post time skip as much is because the post time skip does too much. The main crew has too many characters for all of them to get focused on. There are
Basado.
too many new side characters introduced,
Basado.
too many villains. All the
Basado.
designs are bigger and more detailed, but the pages of One Piece simply do not have space for that anymore.
Basado.
Because of how many characters it wants to have participate in the story at the same time. All the characters have more powers and stronger abilities, but now they don't have any incentive to get stronger anymore, and there's no longer any sense of progression between fights. All the arcs are now ridiculously long and cover so many different things, but One Piece rarely has villains that can be entertaining for that long. And one of the things that made East Blue so fun was that it was an adventure. One Piece
Bueno, a ver, eso de Kiss Blue tan divertido, a ver.
is all about the journey after all, so when we stop at one place for too long, I just end up wanting to go to a new place. Water 7 is the second longest arc in One Piece, and it actually takes place before the time skip. But at least there you go to a completely different location in the middle of the arc. The new big and flashy parts of the stories I really
Sí, 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 por eso mismo, o sea, hay gente que te dice que a partir, bueno, ya ni de Arlong, de cuando están ahí con Sanji, es que se pone bueno ahí.
liked as a kid just doesn't mesh well with the story. And it absolutely does not mesh well with the anime. You would think that the second half of One Piece, which has way faster pacing, would translate to faster pacing in the anime as well.
Y es todo lo contrario.
But for some reason the opposite happened. But make sure to check out this video to hear why the One Piece anime really
Hermano, se basó. Se basó con Vive, ¿eh? El tipo soltó los factos. O sea, aquí de verdad que con nada, o sea, con Dragon Ball no pegó nada. Pero aquí dijo la verdad, ¿eh? Muy basado. Muy basado. God.